7 of Voices of CX podcast, still bringing you the best thought leaders, practitioners, and academics of the industry, but this time with a renewed focus on the human touch. Empathy is our key word, and we're going all out on discussing how conversations can reshape experiences and your business inside and out. No matter how big your business is, what your challenges are, or your industry, connecting with your customers and their decisions is essential to leading through empathy. So we are back with one more episode of season 7 of Voices of Customer Experience. And today I am joined by a special guest who came to our Atlanta offices, especially for this recording right here. Now, I lie. He actually lives in Atlanta, and I found this out on accident and invited him in. So, Ryan, hi, how are you? Ryan Mason.
Mary, I'm super excited to be here. Thank you so much. I can't wait. Let's do it.
Awesome. Okay, so let's start out by, you and I had a conversation the other day where we kind of got to know each other, but our listeners did not participate in that conversation. So Why don't you give them a quick rundown of who you are, what your background is, and the things that truly motivate you.
Sure. So my name is Ryan Mason again. I am the CEO and founder of 2 companies, the first company being Luxe Brand, which is the leading branded provider of luxury leather shoelaces in the U.S. So it's really unique. We make really cool luxury leather shoelaces, mostly made from Italian lambskin. We wanted to provide, the consumer basically an opportunity to express their sense of style and fashion through their shoelaces. So, like I said, that's what we do. Now, the second company is called BizBuzz Digital, and we provide marketing automation software for small businesses. So basically, our customers can go in and handle their listings, their reputation, their social, their website, and also their advertising all from one platform. So now there's literally about 15,000 different softwares that can help you do whatever you need to do in marketing, but they're not integrated in most cases. So we pull everything into one platform so that you can understand exactly what's happening at every single stage of the funnel.
And of these 2 companies, which one is your passion project?
Honestly, that's a tough question. I get that asked. That is asked to me all the time. It started with Luxe Brand because that was, from my story, that was what literally got me started in business. Mm-hmm. And, at the time I was a college, student who had literally just got off of a scholarship. So I dropped a full scholarship to pursue business. I didn't know what it was going to be at the time, but I wanted to do something. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to grow in some form or fashion. And after, a couple of years, I realized that business was all around me. I mean, literally, it wasn't until after I started my first company, had some success there, and then transitioned into my second company and building that one. That's when I really realized that, oh my goodness, my dad, my uncle, my grandfather, and all 5 of his brothers all own local businesses, which is kind of why we work with a lot of local businesses nowadays anyway. So it took a couple of years for me to really realize that, but oh my God, it's been a journey and I'm enjoying every second of it.
So tell me a little bit about Luxe Brands, how you came up with this idea, how you realized that the market even had this pain to begin with.
Yeah.
and how you are providing a solution. I mean, you talked about, high-end Italian leather, et cetera, and ways for people to express themselves.
Right.
But how come, do you have a lot of competition? Are a lot of people thinking about express yourself through your shoelaces?
Yeah, so there's actually been quite a few that have popped up and focused on this niche over the years. But for me, it's a funny story. It was really a means to an end for me. So I was going through a point in my life where here I am being the son of a ex-NFL football player who played running back, and also a cousin of another ex-NFL football player, and a younger brother who was literally climbing the ranks. At the time, I think he had just been named number 2 in the country for his position. So there was immense pressure for me to go on to college and perform. And honestly, going into college, to make a really long story short, I got to a point where about 3 years in, I realized that, man, things were just not lining up the way that I originally envisioned them to line up. So I had to make a decision. I had to figure out, okay, well, for one, if I'm going to talk about transitioning, which is leaving football and leaving a full scholarship that I've busted my tail for the greater half of my life, I got to have a backup plan.
Yeah.
I mean, my mom's going to look at me like I'm crazy, and she did that. But, the main thing was I needed to find something to do to convince them and others that I wasn't going to be, a failure, and two, that I wasn't throwing my life away.
Right.
So that was a lot of mental pressure for me. Oh my goodness. I mean, just a ton of mental pressure. And, but basically I went home one Christmas break, and it was like in between that, that season, and we're getting ready for spring training. So I went home for Christmas break, and I had this idea. I said, well, I need to figure something out because I'm not happy. I'm walking around here like a sad puppy, and I gotta, figure out how can I do something that's gonna help me transition into my life and potentially put me in a position to do something that I may be doing for the rest of my life. So I went home, and literally I saw this guy on Instagram, and basically he would take apart shoes. So he would really recreate a shoe from scratch, and he would use all of these crazy exotic leathers, and he would start his prices out at about $1,500 a shoe, and he would be booked up within the first 3 to 4 months for the entire year. I mean, He was cranking this stuff out, and I was like, oh my God, this is something I can do. I like fashion, I like shoes. This is something I can get into. Well, basically, I realized that after cutting up a bunch of shoes and literally having my parents walk by like, what is this kid doing? My brother's playing the game, looking at me like, okay, maybe he's bored. and I'm the older brother, right? So after realizing and doing that, I realized that, hey, I need to kind of figure something else out because I don't have the resources. I'm still in college. I'm broke. I can't go and leave the state to learn how to, build shoes.
Right.
And I really I don't have the time and that kind of commitment at that point. So basically I thought about it. It's like, well, what can I do to the shoe to change something that hasn't been changed before? We thought, and that's where laces came to mind. I thought laces, they were always cotton. They looked the same. There was a fad around the shoe industry. They would go get all of these shoes, the Jordans and stuff like that, and Nikes, but they were always the same.
Yeah. They
had nothing else other than to say, I got the same shoe as 15 of my other friends.
Right. Unless you were a super celebrity and then you got a personalized shoe.
Exactly.
Right.
That's exactly right. So that's where Shoelaces kind of came into the mix, was like, okay, this has the potential to, one, increase the value of the shoe, but also this has the potential to just basically give a person the sense of uniqueness that they needed. So when I realized that, I got to work. I did my research. I went to leather shops. I learned how to cut leather. I learned how to build my first pair of laces. And then I learned how unique it really was because I was trying to get help from so many people. And I mean, they sucked at it until it was a process. Oh my goodness, it was a journey. But eventually we figured that out, and we just kept going and kept growing. And that was the reason that kind of just allowed me to build the confidence to go and talk to others at the university to get secondary opinions on, have I lost my mind for trying to leave a scholarship to do something different? And then that led to conversations with my father, which I was so scared and terrified to have. And I mean, it took me it took me about 8 months to have that conversation.
Wow.
I had to get so many opinions before then because I was like, there's no way I'm going to bring up to my dad that I want to leave a scholarship. So that's how that kind of started. But yeah, I mean, it's a really funny story. A really funny thing is I remember when I first got back to school, after I kind of had this idea, I invested about $300 or $400 in buying my first leather hide and making my first pair of laces, and realizing that, okay, I can't do this by myself. I need help. I went back to school and I literally got online. And for me, my biggest dream was to go on to the NFL and go to this big school, the Alabamas, the Auburns of the world. And I'm at UNA, the University of North Alabama, a very small school in Florence, Alabama. And at first, I was just like, I felt like I was deserving of more and better just because I had done so much work. But that happened to be the best thing that literally never happened for me. The best thing that never happened was that I went to a small school And I was able to get, connect with those people, build relationships with really great people who I'm still connected to this day. And UNA has been amazing, and I love it, So, but basically, I contacted about 7 people in that department in the College of Business, and they were random people. I didn't know who they were. I started at the top of the list from the dean on down, and I went and met with this guy named Dr. Boer, who, he never let me say no to myself in anything that I've done in my life, and I owe him so much. But basically, from that, I told him my entire story for an hour and a half, and after telling him that story, he said 2 things. Your idea is really cool. How serious are you about it? I said, I'm 120% in. He said, okay, great. We'll work on it during the summer. And the second thing he said was, Ryan, it seems like you already have your answer. And I walked away pissed. I'm like, what do you mean I already have my answer? I came to you, to pour my heart out into you for the last couple of years. And you didn't tell me, was I crazy for thinking about leaving the scholarship, or was I not crazy? So I went to one more person, got a completely unbiased opinion. He told me the exact same thing. Ryan, it seems like you already have your answer. And at that moment, I knew it was time for me to go and talk to my dad. And that's kind of what happened. I talked to him. He said something that I completely didn't expect to happen. He said, Ryan, I support you 100%. After that, I went to my coaches. I let go of a full scholarship, and I got to work.
From that moment on, when you knew that it's what you wanted to do, run a business, start working with Shoelaces, in this case with Luxe Brands, what was the first step? I imagine there was a lot of trial and error.
Oh, yeah.
But what was it? When did you feel like you were on the right path? And when did you actually start reaping the fruit of your labor?
Yeah. Whew, that's a really good question. So I went through this period where I was trying to break out of the norms. Trying to break out of, for me, it was let's go corporate, right? Let's go corporate, get you some benefits, and live life that way. And mainly it was just different people around me preaching that. My mother was one of them. And I'm going to say this, I love my mother to death, but she was one of them. But because, and I didn't realize this till later on in life, that she wanted me, she had lived through all of those ups and downs from her father, my grandfather, her husband, my father, her brother, my uncle, and the 5 brothers of my grandfather, her uncles. She had lived through all those ups and downs, and she knew it was going to be a very challenging path. So she wanted me to go and get some benefits and start with a solid foundation. And I understand that. Yeah. But for me, in my mind, I was like, nope. I even tried it with an internship. And after that, I was like, there's no reason why I should be here, because my heart is pulling me somewhere else. But to answer your question, the first sign that I really realized that, hey, there's potential here and I'm moving in the right path is when I basically got laces on a few celebrities. The first celebrity was Kevin Gates. I have a picture of him holding the shoe with the laces in them. And then immediately after that, I got to work. I realized that, hey, they like this, so next thing you know, my shoelaces are being worn in a Super Bowl by Devin McCourty. Next thing you know, they're worn in both Super Bowls, 2 years in a row by the McCourty twins. And then I have about, maybe about 30 to 40 athletes at the time. Antonio Brown, who's at the time was the number 2 receiver in the entire NFL. Just a lot of people. So we're getting traction. We got DJ Khaled, just several other people. And the real moment when I realized, okay, this is really real, is I woke up one morning and I checked my emails. And the first thing that I see is, hey, Ryan, this is Tori Johnson from Good Morning America. It's like, huh? So I literally immediately, I don't know what to say. I'm just like in shock, of course. And I'm just like, okay, can we get on a call? Like, there's got to be a catch. I mean, what's happening here? So we had a couple laughing moments, but they're telling me about what's going to happen, how, they love the product, they found it and how they found it and everything like that. So I'm like, okay, cool. So what's the catch? immediately bust out laughing on the phone. There's no catch, Ryan. We really love your product. We want it on the show. So I said, okay, cool. So in the midst of preparing for that, a couple of days after that, Foot Locker. Same thing, literally. It's like clockwork, the same thing. Hey, Ryan, do you have a representation from Foot Locker? Do you have laces in stores? Of course not. Is this a trick question? So from there, I realized, like, oh my goodness, there is riches in the niches. I mean, you got to just go and you got to persevere. And I think that is the story of the beginning of my journey is just perseverance and being able to understand you're going to have failures, but successful people fail their way to the top.
So you've got this marketing platform that you use now, but you also do a lot of speaking. You do consulting, you do keynotes, and you wrote a book.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And I imagine that the gist of this content has to do with your entrepreneurial journey.
Absolutely.
The mistakes that you made, I imagine, the successes. And was there at some point that you realized that you had created a business model that could be replicated?
Yes. So one of the biggest things that I've learned, especially from both companies that I've started, is that there's 3 ingredients to building a powerful business, and that's people, process, and platform. The right people attract leads, close deals, job conversions, but they use a proven process, okay? A process is a repeatable flow of checklists or tasks that can be repeated or replicated, okay? And they also use platform to do it at scale. So the whole scope of everything that I'm doing is that I'm educating people. I'm training people, I'm teaching people, and also I'm building people, okay? And basically, we're given the process, which is step by step. This is what we do. This is how we're going to give you results. And that's the digital playbook. You know, so gone are the days where we hold all of our information so tight, nobody else knows, because it's 2020 and we have to be willing to share with people and be transparent with people about what we're doing and what we're building and how we achieve results and success for our clients. So that's the process piece. And then the platform is our software, how we use this software to be efficient and do it at scale. So that's how all of this connects together. And all of that is basically in the book. So it's called the Digital Playbook. And basically what I wanted to do with that book was take all the things that I've learned from not only building my companies, but also our clients, and all the knowledge and information that I've gotten from my mentors, and I have been able to leverage and obtain. And now I want to give that, because I know that I wished that I had a book or a process that I can follow when building my first couple of companies.
Yeah, maybe one of the trickiest parts of starting up a new business is that trial and error stage. Absolutely. Where you have to make all those mistakes before you can get the model down. But you never really know which mistake could actually run you out of business.
Yeah, that's
so there's constantly that risk, right? You're like, no, you got to keep failing, because, once you fail, that you're increasing your success rate, et cetera.
Right.
But how do you know you're not making that fatal mistake for your business?
Yeah,
right.
That's a good point. And I think too, like for me, it's a mindset shift. For me too, it's like, okay, yeah, even if you do make a drastic mistake and you run out of business, like think about all the knowledge you've gained. Think about that. I mean, I can guarantee you if you look at history, those CEOs who have failed in their business and who are building really freaking big businesses now, they have all failed.
Oh, yeah.
They've all literally went out of business before.
I mean, if we talk about Steve Jobs, right, who's the pinnacle of startup success, et cetera.
Right.
He was kicked out of his own freaking company.
Yeah.
So
people don't realize that. But also, too, people got to talk about the failures, because honestly, we got to realize that is how we learn.
Yeah.
That's the best way to actually achieve success, is to learn from your own mistakes.
Do you think there was a moment, because is it natural for humans to be so resistant to failure? Or do you think that this is something that at some point was culturally ingrained into our mentalities that you can't fail?
I think it's a little bit of both. Social media is one of those things.
Absolutely.
Let's be honest. Social media is and not just social media, but also it happens in person as well. But a lot of times we look at others, and this is what I dealt with when I was getting started. I was scared of failure. I was scared to death to be like labeled as, oh, the guy who flunked out of school or lost a full scholarship.
Yeah.
And that wasn't even the case because I was literally opting out myself.
Right.
But I was sitting here, I'm like, oh, they're gonna label me. They're gonna label me. But you know why that was? It's because I'm looking at and comparing myself to so many other people's situations, and it's not my situation.
Right.
I'm literally looking at other people's highlight reels instead of understanding the entire film.
That's exactly it. I couldn't have said it better. That's exactly it. When we see it, when we notice an individual, someone who is looked up to or a role model, it's because that person has finally achieved that success, but we don't have a clear vision of the road that it took to get to that success. And it's funny because even though a lot of these people are more than humble enough to say, no, this was a really hard journey, we tend to ignore this. We're like, yeah, sure, blah, blah, whatever, you're successful,
Yeah.
Because I think maybe we want to create some sort of romantic ideal in our mind.
Of course.
Kind of like, you know how people dream about winning the lottery?
Yeah.
They're like, low effort, high reward. It's like, that's not a thing.
Yeah,
like,
It's not.
Yeah. So like as humans, we're conditioned to even fantasize about low effort, high reward.
Right.
And that's, like I tell my kids this all the time. And everybody, people who work over here with me, there are no free lunches. There's no free ride. You have to work for everything that you accomplish, right? But let me switch gears really quick and talk about your road of entrepreneurship and try to put on the colored lenses of the customer's point of view.
Sure.
Because after all, this is a customer experience podcast, right? In your life, in your experience, building the companies that you have built, how much has the customer factored in to your success formula? How much have you learned about the true value? And what sort of message would you give people who are starting a path in entrepreneurship of how they should treat the customer?
For one, the customer is everything. The customer is everything. You have no business if you have no customer. So it's important to understand the way they think, what makes them tick, what makes them decide to convert, what makes them, give reviews and give testimonies, or, whether that's good or bad. It's really important to understand that. So something that I always talk about is the customer journey. I think it's really important, especially when you're getting started in building a business. You have to make sure that you do your research. And once you build an MVP, so that's a minimum viable product or anything, whether that's physical or software or whatever, right? You have to go out and you have to do research on the customer. You have to figure out what they like, what they don't like, what's going to make them purchase, how much they will purchase, and then also what experience they're looking for, okay? So the customer journey, it kind of goes like this. It's super simple, right? You have, and you can think about this in a way where it's just pretty much the typical things that the customer goes through before they decide to do business with you and after, okay? So first you have interest and awareness, all right? So usually, basically back in the day, this was something like maybe a billboard, maybe an ad in the phone book or something, weird like that. But
have you ever seen a phone book, Ryan? Let's be honest here.
Right. But I mean, the funny thing though is, those things are, some of them, in most cases, they're not all the way gone away completely. All right. They're just being supplemented by stuff like digital stimulus. Okay. Yeah. So now you got, loyalty programs, you got advertising, PPC, all of that type of stuff. But usually once they get some type of interest, the next thing that happens is they're going to pull out their phone, all right, and they're going to literally do their research on you. So now that we have so much access to so much information all on our phones, and we have this access 24/7, people are now literally making decisions and formulating opinions about companies as soon as they do the research.
Yeah, it's the age of the empowered customer.
Exactly. Exactly. So the next thing that happens is, they're doing their research. So in a lot of cases, they'll go to Google, but that's not what they do all the time, every single time. There's other things, GPSs, you have different apps, you have different search engines, and they're going to go and they're going to research you. So what happens next is basically they're going to make sure, after they find you, they're going to make sure that they do their research even more. So they're going to look at your reviews. They're going to see what other people have to say about you. I got a question for you. So
shoot.
Think about this, all right? When's the last time you shopped on Amazon?
Like 5 minutes before you walked in.
Oh, my goodness. Right. So, and I'm pretty sure that you looked at reviews.
I did not.
Oh.
Ooh.
Oh.
Ooh.
So did you have a recommendation?
Look, I don't count. I did have a recommendation.
Okay,
I'll get into that in a second. But I don't count for most of these things because since this is my market, I'm like, I am absolutely going to shield myself from these biases. But I did have a recommendation.
Same thing, though.
I read one of those. Okay, so it was a Halloween costume. This episode is being recorded 1 week before Halloween.
Right.
So I was looking at a Halloween costume and, I was online searching for, 20 best Halloween costume ideas for 2020. And there was a link there directly to Amazon. So
yeah. So
there was a social proof factor going on for sure.
This is, exactly. That's a good point, right? Because, it's not just those reviews that people are giving, but it's also just anything that you can see related to that business that'll help you formulate the opinion, all right? And that's called the 0 moment of truth. And if you don't believe me, look it up on Google. So here's the thing, right? Basically the next thing is, you really have to think about that customer because word of mouth, which has been offline for so long, is online. And it's literally online. You got to think about this. If you go to a meeting, all right, or not even a meeting, an event, and there's 100 people in that room, and basically all of those people formulate an opinion of the speaker, right? You may have, 10, 15 people go express their opinion online, or word of mouth, amongst their friends. But if someone sees that same video and let's say 500, 1,500, 2,000 people see that video and they go comment and they go review and they go talk about it, that's word of mouth too. Yeah. It's just online. Yeah. And that's where people are making decisions. Over 90% of people are making decisions online. So after that, usually is when they get to the point of conversion. And that's the point where they actually say, okay, well, I'm going to exchange money for your product or service, okay? So obviously there you got, your website, you got different apps where people can actually convert on. And then after that, it's the stage of advocacy, okay? So that is where you want to make sure that people either love the experience, all right, and they actually express that they love the experience. All right, because that is when they're going to literally tell their friends and family. And then, as we know, in most cases, they're going to say, if it was a bad experience, they're going to let the world know. Especially for restaurants. Oh, my God, talk about that all the time. Oh, yeah. They're going to let everyone know because they're so excited to share bad information. So you want to make sure that you're nurturing them through that stage as well. So that's the customer journey.
Yeah. I have a question for you.
Sure.
I haven't spoken about this yet, so you're my first guest that I'm going to bring this up. So if it doesn't make any sense, just ignore it and we'll cut it in post-production. So here's my train of thought.
Okay.
For the longest time, we've been discussing the importance of word of mouth and the slippery slope that is reviews and the internet and the empowered customer.
Right.
Well, we've seen a really recent event, which is the rise of the shaming of the Karens of the world. Okay? Where I think that everything in the world, and I don't know why humans are like this, we're so cyclical about our behavior. Yeah. We create a really, really bad habit, and that generates anger, and then transformation. And then with time, that transformation also becomes a bad thing, and we gradually steer to the polar opposite again, and we just keep going from opposite to opposite, and we never settle in some commonality in the middle in this massive gray zone. We're always at extremes.
Right.
So for a really long time, companies treated their customers like garbage, and customers couldn't do anything about it. And then one day somebody complained, and this became a movement. And eventually companies realized that if your customers talk bad about you, this is going to result in a negative impact for your business. So companies started catering directly towards keeping their customers satisfied. And then you get that customer is always right mentality, which then permeates into corporate culture. And companies start doing everything they can to keep customers happy because they understand that a returning customer is cheaper than getting a new one because that cost per acquisition is so freaking high, right? And so companies do anything to keep customers happy until one day people turn around and they're like, dude, why is it okay for you to walk into an establishment and tell off some poor person working on the counter because you feel entitled to it with your customer privilege? and society as a whole realizes that that's so douchey. Yeah. And people don't want that anymore. I also feel like, of course, this is generating extreme reactions. And now people are beginning to feel so intimidated about possibly being labeled a Karen, that they're no longer complaining. Yeah. Like I see a lot of memes on the internet where people are like, oh my God, this food is horrible. Server walks by, is everything okay? Oh, it's delicious. It's wonderful. I'm not going to be the one to complain, right? So then the person is having a bad experience, but they will not talk about it. They will not mention it. They will never bring it up. They'll leave and never come back. Therefore, never giving the company a chance to realize their mistake.
That's true.
Do you feel like we are walking towards an era where we're back to that other extreme where customers never give feedback because people are afraid of being labeled?
I think we possibly are. I think, I don't think it'll be as bad, but I think what's happening is it's definitely going to reverse or go back. And I think what'll happen from there is we're going to end up back to where, it's literally going to be like a ping pong table, right? But I do 100% agree that is happening. And it's going to be interesting how to really figure out, how to understand that customer in new ways. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. Because there are several things that you can really pick up on. And a lot of those things you have to be like, either you have to have the right data in place or the right personable experiences who can understand and see, because some things, it may be facial reactions, in person. It may be, the way that their body demeanor is. But I think this is going to develop a need for companies to be smarter and learn how to understand their customer even more.
So it's about developing the right channels to allow customers to give feedback, maybe not in a public setting. Yeah. So it could maybe be positive when you think about it. I mean, I think that everything is positive about showing people that you're not allowed to be disrespectful to folks just because you're in a position of privilege, regardless of what that privilege is. But then, again, that crucial face-to-face touch point that companies have with their consumers, whether it's in the brick and mortar or whether it's online reviews. Because the masses aren't only revolting against the in-person Karen, they're doing it with online Karen as well.
Exactly.
So when you get a really douchey review, people are no longer even paying that much attention to it. Because it's like, why are you calling this person out and trying to ruin their business?
Yeah.
I think that the market has
You can pretty much tell.
Yeah, well, like we're getting the awareness that, hey, that tactic is old. We know it now. Like we've heard of people who have gotten upset at somebody and just posted a whole bunch of bad reviews at an establishment.
And got their friends to do it too.
And literally drove somebody out of business because of a personal vendetta with reviews. And that, do you think that the age of Yelp is maybe coming to an end?
It's getting there. It's definitely getting there. I think, because like I tell people, like your physical landscape is just as important as your digital landscape. So, yes, there are instances online that are happening, and you can clearly tell when someone goes and leaves a really nasty review. And a lot of times, because I deal with reviews all the time, but a lot of times you can read it and you can see that they hadn't even had an experience with them. I mean, it's completely made up.
Yeah. But maybe you as the business owner can tell.
Yeah.
But somebody who's just navigating.
Right. I think we're getting there to where people are starting to be able to tell the difference as well.
I think that in general, since I talk to people about this a lot, because it's a topic that interests me, I found that people are losing faith in reviews. And I, there are several attributions for this. One could be the digital Karen. Right. Another thing can be a couple months ago, maybe last year, there was that case where Sunday Riley was actually convicted of having her team flood Sephora.com with fake reviews on Sunday Riley Cosmetics. And nothing really happened. There were no real consequences. It was like, you have to apologize and little tiny slap on the wrist, never do that again. But the truth is that there are no laws that are that keep companies from posting fake reviews about themselves.
There aren't.
So not only that, I think that online shoppers or even people on the internet looking for reviews are coming to terms with the fact that if that poster has a different demographic or different likes or dislikes or different standards, really, that review is entirely shot. Like personal experience, I went to Italy a couple years ago and, I decided to check TripAdvisor. The worst decision ever. Because I think that a lot of the reviews that I had read were from maybe people who were backpacking or people who were staying at hostels, and they had a different experience. They had a different expectation of experience than I did. So I was looking for something to relax on vacation, with my husband, etc. And I ended up going to a place that really wasn't my style of hotel based on, TripAdvisor reviews. Right. Never use TripAdvisor for that again. And I bet that there are a lot of people in my situation, right? Yeah,
I think that's a good point. I mean, I think it's going to, even in the review setting, it's going to cause those companies, those review companies, like Google, Yelp, and different things like that to evolve the way that they take reviews. I mean, because like you just said, you had a different expectation than the average person, right? And that needs to be expressed. That needs to be maybe a category or some type of switch that you can press or some button that you can press so that you can leave it based off of that expectation. So that is that. I think that is what we're heading towards. One of the things that I like to do as well, is video. That is the way of tomorrow, and I talk about that in my book, basically creating 1-minute videos. But the big thing here is a lot of times you can't fake a video. People will. It's
harder, at least,
it's
right?
It's really hard.
You can craft a review or a comment.
Right. You can sit there and think about it all day, go to sleep, and come back and write the rest of it, right?
Or even edit it after.
Right. Yeah. But giving a really genuine video testimonial is way more difficult to conduct and also potentially way more powerful.
Yeah. I believe that video is kind of where the market is headed, and this is why this season of the podcast is done through video, because we're trying to meet our customers or our listeners halfway, and people are demanding more video content, maybe because it is a way to show a little bit more authenticity.
Exactly.
As long as we don't have deep fakes.
Yeah, right. So, but no, that's the way of tomorrow, because I mean, we talk about it all the time. Even video ads. What has really helped me is just pulling out my phone and literally, like right now, I'm promoting this book. I got about 1,500 contacts, and I'm literally sitting there sending messages to all of these contacts who I've talked to over the years, and in most cases we are on good terms. But I mean, it's so natural because all I'm doing is pulling up my phone, and I'm saying, hey guys, Ryan Mason, I know we haven't spoken in a while, but I wanted to let you know that I've been working really hard for the last 6 months on my first book, The Digital Playbook. And in this book, I'm going to show all the secrets that I have used to win business with Good Morning America, NFL Network, Foot Locker Stores, Adidas, Yahoo Finance, Fox News, and so much more. And I wanted to, because of our relationship, give you a special discount for the pre-sale. So I will be on the lookout, because I'll be sending you a message within the next week with all the details. And I promise you, this is my best work to date. So swipe up, right? Or something like that. But you see, I mean, it's so natural. I mean, it's not.
And it's authentic too, isn't it?
It's not staged. Yeah, it's not staged. They feel like it's for them. It is for them.
Yeah.
But
that's definitely something that I agree wholeheartedly with. The market is craving authentic experiences.
Right.
And maybe that is why people are craving video. Because it's more authentic.
Yeah, experience is everything.
It's easier to spot a poser, right?
Now, there are some people who are really good at
Yeah, you're right.
We do have actors that are not on the big screen, right?
Right, of course. But it's more difficult.
Absolutely.
And it's at least people like to believe that they can spot authenticity better if it's visual, right?
Right. That's so true. That's so true.
Now, tell me this, because wow, we've been talking for a while. Time just flew right past us.
Well, let's keep going.
Where do you see your businesses going, and how do you see yourself? Now, here's the cool part of the question.
Okay.
How do you see yourself molding and reshaping your businesses as you progress into the future to attend the future expectations of your customers?
That's a good question. Yeah, so I think for me, of course, I definitely want to build a really big business, but the reason why I want to do that, hence the why, I want to give exact and direct examples of how to build a company, build a culture, build a foundation, and inspire others. More importantly, the future business leaders of tomorrow. So I think if I stay true to my why and why I'm doing this, why I'm in this, and I continue to love the journey as I do now, then all the other challenges that come up, it's going to be the perfect reason for me to go back, look at that why, and say, okay, Ryan, although the market is shifting, although the customer habits are changing, we can figure this out, right? We can figure out ways to be on the cutting edge. We can figure out how to adapt to those new customer habits. So just to give you an example, like right now, COVID, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and we were just talking about, it's literally starting in November, and we're coming up on November, right? It's crazy just to even think about it. But the thing is, we knew that most of our local businesses are going to be struggling.
Yeah.
They're going to be struggling to keep their doors open. This is our customer, right? And we needed to figure out ways to help them keep the doors open. So we released an Express Toolkit, which is basically free products that they can use to help them get online very quickly, a one-click website where they can get online if they weren't already online, and shop and start to sell their products online as well. So, and also maybe, to do like, for example, let's say if they were a restaurant and they needed to do curbside pickup. Well, we needed to be at the forefront of that because we know that our customers were going to deal with that. So honestly, one of the big things, I want to go back to people, process, and platform, because that's going to be something that I deal with and I implement in every single product, every single stage of my businesses. people, process, and platform. No matter what it is, no matter if you're doing marketing, no matter if you're doing, sales, there's the same thing, right? Here's what I like to take about that. Now, it's important to have nimble people, nimble processes, and nimble platforms. All right, and what I mean by that is every stage of the funnel, if it's the foundation is set and solid enough, you should be able to change and adapt. It's hard to change and adapt with efficiency if you don't have a solid foundation, because I've been there before, running around trying to build a business like a chicken with my head cut off. And when something like this hits you in the face, amongst you running around like a chicken with your head cut off, you don't recover a lot of times. So no matter what I do, and when I'm growing, I want to make sure that I incorporate the nimbleness, the creativity, the ability to actually move with the current changes. So with that being said, some of the next milestones for me, for Luxe Brand is I want to actually get another national placement. Of course, personally, so the whole goal, the why behind getting the national placement is because honestly, I want to do it and I want to bring awareness to a certain illness or social cause. One of the things that's important to me is breast cancer. My grandmother passed of breast cancer, and I know that it affects so many women in this world. And I want to bring awareness to it because not only that, but other causes as well, just because, I can't fathom what those people go through, So the next piece of that, personally, I would love to get on Good Morning America personally. That's a longer term vision, but it's going to happen, because I'm going to claim it. For BizBuzz, I really want to be able to impact over 100,000 businesses with whether that's processes or platforms. So that's the vision, but it all comes back to my why.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
Great. Well, it's great to have a fellow Atlanta business person here today with us. And thank you so much for coming out. It's been great to listen to your journey. And I'm sure that this will help inspire other people who are thinking of starting their own business or thinking of kicking it off. And they want to do so. They want to start with the right foot. They want to start off keeping the customer as their North Star.
Yeah.
So it was great having you on, great explaining these concepts that you've built and the experience that you've gathered over the year. Let us know when your book is coming out and how can people buy it? Yeah,
so actually, by the time this podcast releases, it's going to be out, right? So you can actually go to our website and scroll down. So my website is ryandmason.com, which is my personal site. Scroll down to about half the page, and you'll see a section that talks about the digital playbook, and that'll be a picture of the book. You can buy your copy there, okay? I encourage you, go get it soon because it's going to be releasing for only 99 cents. So if you catch it in time, that's the pre-sale discount that you guys get. But yeah, ryandmason.com is where you can go. If you want to go to Luxe Brand, you can go to Luxe Brand, LUXE-brand.com to shop there. And of course, the last thing, BizBuzz, BIZBUZZ, digital.com.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ryan. It's great having you.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Great. Awesome. That's our show. Thanks for joining us. We hope we've brought you one step closer to leading through empathy. It's our way of making the world a better place, one business at a time. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell if you want to know as soon as we publish a new episode. Voices of CX is brought to you by Worthix. I'm Mary Drummond. This podcast is hosted and produced by me, edited and co-produced by Steve Barry. See you next week.